accepted.
Hey, welcome to the Tech Capital World. My name is Dave, CEO and founder of Foundry. How's it going today, Kevin?
It's good. Kind of a crazy
Good.
day, right?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. So I guess we could
day.
start off like we try to remain positive around here, but like we can't ignore that there's bombs and wars going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so hopefully if you're in that area and you're watching, we'll probably get more concerns than watching us right now. So hopefully if you got friends or family that they're safe today. So it kind of sucks what's going on.
Yep. We thought
war never helps anyone.
Exactly.
I mean, like it just never benefits anybody.
We thought we'd come anyway. We thought about canceling, so like I think a lot of other people have canceled some stuff, and thought we'd shop.
Yeah.
Here we
kind
are.
of sucks.
Yeah.
All right.
So a couple of stories. We will do Q&A just like we normally do. You guys throw your questions in chat, and I will queue them up, and we'll do them just like we normally do. A couple of kind of things to talk about first, I guess, which you haven't seen yet, because I was looking at these right before. But a couple of meta things to kind of talk about I thought were interesting. So they did it. Meta did a couple of things yesterday. So talking about putting this AI-powered universal speech translator. So in my mind, immediately, it made me think of like
Star Trek,
Star Wars, right? So in Book of Boba Fett, they have the character in there has like a voice translator, right? The mayor has like this voice translator. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I guess the differences between what exists now and this is like that it's AI, and they're saying like, you know, certain languages already have like massive amount of coverage. Some have very little coverage. So this helps with the ones that have very little coverage to be a truly universal thing. And obviously they're looking at putting this in AR and VR, like, which would be kind of cool. I could see like, you know, it translates like real time through your glasses or whatever. Could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, I always thought that was one of those plot holes in Star Trek where, you know, they'd always taught the Klingons or whatever, and they'd tie in the universal translator.
Yeah.
And then suddenly their voices matched up with the English that they're speaking. So yeah, I know that. So maybe it'll be like a combination of deep fake plus AI translator that moves the lips correctly, you know?
Maybe this is a real thing. They're saying like
that's what Star Trek does. So.
Who knows where this goes? Yeah. Maybe with AR, VR, you could do something like that, right? I mean, you could AR like a face onto somebody else, and interesting. But they're saying this in our lifetime, and of course they're saying it's not initially AR VR, but it's like a thing for AR VR in the future. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. I like that idea. I'm not very good with
instant
languages,
translation of languages is definitely something that's possible to do. If you look at that now, speech to text and translation is pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right now, and all the platforms have them, whether it be Azure, AWS. So.
They do, but I think this is the fact that they have an AI version or whatever that means. I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Something else in the same realm, though, another meta story, which I'll talk about in a second. But the story itself, Zuckerberg demo is a tool for building virtual worlds. So this has a little video demo too. I encourage you to go actually watch this. It's like a minute 30 video, and it's basically like brings a VR world into existence through voice. So they're basically like, hey, put me on a beach. Hey, I want a tree over there, and put an island over there, and put me down a picnic table. And it builds this VR world through speech, like, you know, and it knows the words, it knows the things. Obviously, it's a demo, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt for like, does it actually work for everything? I don't know. But it put 3D objects in this virtual world, and I was like, okay, this is an interesting way to kind of build these things, because the tools are kind of clunky. At least the Quest tools are kind of clunky.
Well, if you've any tool like that, building 3D tools, whether that be through Unity or Unreal, or it's a lot of work to get it to work correctly.
Yep.
You know, if you've ever tried to do it, you know, you dropping a picnic table down on that beach, you're like, oh, that's easy, and then it's like. But on some views or some angles, it's not right on the right plane. It looks weird, you know, from the left-hand side or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's not sitting on the right plane.
And I don't know how well this works in terms of playing because you can't quite tell from the demo they give you. They give you a static shot, so you can't really tell. You don't walk around the world. But they did have things like
the people there are just like half cut off. They lost their legs. So they're like been buried in sand or something. I don't know.
That's a Verizon's world thing. I think that's just a better thing. But they did have a speaker here, and they did put music on the speaker too. It's like, play me some like beach tunes, and it played tunes. And it's like, let me hear the sound of the ocean. It played the sound of the ocean. I was like, okay.
Put a little background.
Yeah. I was like, that's kind of interesting. An interesting way to kind of build these worlds out, because it takes it away from kind of the more developer side of things, more into like the everyday person kind of thing. Like, I can kind of build my own world just through voice. It's kind of interesting.
So I noticed the first line of it says Meta, formerly known as Facebook. Do you think this is going to be like Prince, where he tried to change his name? He was the artist formerly known as Prince.
And people just refuse to like adopt it, and we just constantly call them Facebook. Maybe. I mean, maybe. For our generation, I think so. I think that is a thing. It's not really going to get changed, is it? It's kind of we're always going to call it Facebook.
Right.
Speaking of Facebook, if you haven't watched it, you need to go watch the Great Hack documentary on Netflix. It talks about the Cambridge Analytica thing and the Facebook stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, like, with the election stuff, yeah.
It's dumb. It immediately makes me want to delete Facebook. Like, it really does. It has that feeling to it. I know it's a little bit. It's like a couple of years old, but I recently got around to watching it. I was like, man, it's like mind blowing stuff. Guys, yelling at me for this stuff. So yeah, those are the couple things that I had to talk.
Couple stories for today. So breaking into web development. So let's start with some ideas and things that they could do. If you've got a question about that you want to ask me about specifically what you're doing, I thought we could start today with something that we're working on. Because I thought about like the topic today, and this is called prepping for the tech interview. Like, how do you do this? Like, what should you do? A lot of times what we see the struggle with students, even in our sphere, let's say that if you look at Coder Foundry, what we see the biggest struggle from students is not necessarily the class itself. It's passing a tech interview. And so I would imagine if you interview any person that's trying this route, is tech interviewing is like the hardest thing. Well, because that's the thing that you need to pass to actually get a job. So proof of work is step one. That's how we try to alleviate this. And we're going to talk real briefly, like how could I use my projects in order to win over tech interviews. So something that we're working on the self-paced course is building out questions in a certain stack. So we're obviously focusing on C#. But you could look at our interview questions that we're going to release here in a little bit, probably in the next couple of weeks, that you can take these questions and apply them to probably a lot of other stacks as well. These questions are just
they're not always
general questions.
Not specific, are they?
Yeah, but we're answering it in the realm of around like, hey, if you knew C#, this is what you need to do. So we have the top 20 questions. The whole thing there is to take a question and then answer the academic answer and then turn that into a demo. So that's your whole goal. And so people that do this instinctively, we see them do it instinctively, where they always say that this person talks in demos all the time. That's how they describe their world. Everything's an example. They can never really tell you the straight answer. They're going to tell you, describe the problem. So if you ask them, hey, can you open the door? They're telling you how the lock mechanism works inside the door.
Right.
The specific doorknob that you have.
Right.
And so like that is important to do. And a lot of people think that's odd that people do that, but people that do that in the tech world always pass technical interviews. And so you need to train yourself to do that. A lot of times the thing you have to resist is if someone asks you a question, is that you answer it like, hey, what is MVC? You answer that with the obvious academic answer, which is what you've been taught in high school, preschool, kindergarten, college, university. Right. You regurgitate the answer on the test. And we approach interviews as a test. And we need to stop doing that and say that the interview is for me to demonstrate or to demo my work. So many people that we see trying to break in, we say, hey, I've interviewed. I was looking at one last night. The guy said, I have applied 500 times to jobs and I'm not successful. No one hires juniors. And I went and looked at his portfolio, no proof of work on the portfolio at all, no projects that you can see that you could go demo.
Right.
And so therefore, when he gets to an interview, he can't demo anything because he doesn't have anything, but he's gone through the learning exercises And so people, now he's trying to say, hey, take a chance on me. Believe me, I can do this. Trust me, I know how to do this. And so the only way they can do it is ask you a bunch of code trivia questions to see if you can answer them. And if you can't,
that's it. I mean, that's your last point.
That's it.
Like trying to win, isn't it?
That's it.
Like,
yeah, that's it. And so like what we want to do is tell you that you need to take interview questions and turn those into demos. And so here's how you do it. You basically go, hey, if I ask you what MVC is or any technical thing, what is React? What is Laravel? What is JavaScript? What is C#? It doesn't really matter. You're going to get this opening salvo, what I call the extreme softball question. Something that everyone should know. What is HTML? What's a web page? What's a website? Yeah. And so a lot of people explain that in the academic answer. For example, MVC is an architectural design pattern consisting of a model view controller. The model's the shape of your data. The view is what the user sees. The controller accepts requests and is an interface between the three things, and you can answer that really quickly. All right. And that's it. You stop right there.
Right.
Then they go to the next code trivia question. Yeah. Then they go to the next one. And then finally they get down to a really complicated one in your world. Maybe like, what's boxing and unboxing? How does garbage collection work in .NET? And you're like, I don't know. And then they say, well, you can't work here. If you don't know that, you don't.
Because you're right. They didn't remember the 15 you answered before. They remember the one you didn't get.
The one you missed, And so like, if you allow someone to ask you 20 code trivia questions, even at the senior level, you're going to miss one eventually, because like they get more and more obscure. And what I've seen,
real story, you've seen this actually happen. You have a real story that happened before.
I've seen it happen. And until you demo stuff and control the interview, it's hard to win as a junior coming in. So what you do is you take that first softball question and you turn that into a demo. So if someone asks you what MVC is, stands for model view control, is a design pattern, blah, 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 blah. And then you say, for example, let me show you what I wrote with MVC and just talk real briefly about this one page that I have. Now you can do that like I'm doing it right now. Like you don't have a way to demo. So you're turning it into a pseudo demo, which means that you're talking about something that you wrote in a concrete way, a concrete class, a concrete controller action, a concrete method that you've written that you can talk about it at a deep level. Or you can say, hey, let's look at the code, and you can open up the code base, share your screen if you're on Zoom or whatever, and walk them through the code. That is the secret to tech interviews. It's the secret that people pass tech interviews that say, oh, that's easy. I got it on my first try. And you're like, how? No one's hiring juniors. And you're like, but what you don't know is what we see the 20 people that interview for a job before they get it. And we know what the other ones did. We know, we've seen it, and we have to coach them through that until they win. And so we know that that's the answer. So something that we're going to release here on Learn.Coder Foundry very soon. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks. I know I'm not supposed to give dates. Kevin's screaming at me right now.
Don't give dates, because these guys will be like 2 weeks exactly to the minute have gone, and it's not been released.
We're pretty close. I mean, it's like it's down to the.
I'll tell you now. I've got the first 20 are up there and edited. So that's the
and we're going to actually release 100 of these so that, but honestly, like we were talking about it, 100's too many, because if you do a good job in interviewing,
you never want to get.
You should never get out of the top 20. I mean, because you got 45 minutes to an hour to talk, and if you turn one question into an 8 to 10 minute demo that has follow-ups, you're going to win the interview. I mean,
I think
you
that's
just
the
are.
Key too. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that too. Your first question, it may be the only question you get asked on a technical level, because what happens is
they ask you directly,
exactly, about random trivia. They're going to push their paperwork to the side, because what you're going to do is you're going to show them your controller, right? And then they're going to say, what is that? Why did you do it that way? What did that do? Oh, how did you do that?
Right.
What is? And they're actually looking at your code at this point. And it's like, now you just like, they're going to ask you questions about stuff you 100% know. And they're going to see something you've actually implemented and be like, why did you implement it that way? Or what did you do there? And now the conversation's totally different. It's no longer code.
Totally different. It's an open book test about something you built, something you really should know a lot about, and then you just win technical interviews that way. So what I think is, will you win every single one using our method? No. But if you had 500 technical interviews already, I can guarantee you that if you wrote something and you can talk about it, it won't take you 500 to pass a technical interview. I don't know how many that will take, but like you need, if you know your code deeply and like you know it like the back of your hand, you're gonna pass technical interviews because that's what they're looking for. So it is the secret sauce to doing this. And Learn.Code, we're going to show you how we do it and how the students coming out of our virtual bootcamp program, how we train them to do it so that they can win a technical interview. It's not tricks. It's very deep technically. Yep. It's a technique. It's not a trick. Someone accused me of Jedi mind tricks. I'm like, it's not a Jedi mind trick. It's just a way to make those answering questions easier for you.
So here's the pushback we get literally all the time, and I was waiting for somebody to ask it, and Kevin asked it. Have you ever heard of a case where employers didn't want to see the project and they pushed LeetCode questions instead? Or let's say it doesn't even have to be LeetCode questions, or they just don't want to do that process.
Right. So it does happen. I think it does happen. What I do think is, Kevin, is it doesn't happen as much as you think.
Yeah.
So in my experience, Kevin, and you got to understand, my experience comes from running a bootcamp since 2014, literally trying to get people jobs all the time, talking to them, debriefing them after they lose, and what happened. All right. And I would say in the US, in general, in the US, it's very few LeetCode type questions. In fact, I think that has been a rejection of those questions in the last, say, 2 years, where you see less and less of those, especially the hard ones in and around things like linked lists, binary trees, because when you're interviewing for a web job, those things aren't like in your day-to-day. Like, is it important? Yes, I understand that. And that's why when I see people, I've talked to people that didn't build any projects at all and exclusively just said, I'm just going to study LeetCode style questions, data structures and algorithms, what you hear over and over and over again. Here's what I want to give you hope for, Kevin. If you have a project and you show that, and you get to 10 technical interviews and you show that project on, say, 7 of them, 3 of them didn't care. So 70% of the time you walk in there like, oh, you got something? Well, let's take a look at it. Yeah. You're going to win one of those if you can talk about it. Now, if you can't talk about it, I can't help you. But if you can talk about the project at a deep level, why you did it, how this code works, you're going to win a job. You just are. I mean, like, because you know how to code. And if you know how to code, you get a job. So it's not magic. So
the thing I would suggest to it, if this method doesn't work and they insist on doing the LeetCode stuff, but you haven't prepped the LeetCode stuff, bomb it and move on. Like, what else
bomb
you
it and
do?
move on, and just find an interview that works for you. You know, so like so much of the LeetCode stuff is important. I get it, but a lot of times
I think it's important if you're a certain kind of developer. If you're making front ends, it's actually
it doesn't matter at all.
But I guarantee you, there's a front end developer job out there where somebody's asking LeetCode questions in the interview because they don't know any different. They're just following the herd. Like, well, everybody asks LeetCode questions, right? So we're going to do that too. Like, you want me to make a web page, man? It's not even. Like,
how about let me show you how I centered a div? I mean, let's talk about that. You mean, like, it's way more important. So, like, I think that if you demo, you're going to win more than you lose. And guess what? How many do we need to win, Kevin? One. I just need to win once. I don't need to have to be Tom Brady and win like 6 out of 10 Super Bowls to be successful. No, I need to just win one job to get paid, and that's all I need to do. So the success rate can be 10%. It doesn't matter what your overall win rate is, as long as you win one. That's all that matters. And so, like, if you can't win a LeetCode style interview, that's okay, man. I mean, like, it's okay. I would rather if you have to pick between the two, focus on projects, interview with projects. It's way more practical. You'll learn way more than you will looking at binary tree recursion that's in a vacuum that doesn't apply to anything that you're doing. Like, in other words, like, why would someone ever do this practically? What is the practical application of some of these LeetCode questions? And it's not there. And so, like, you have to learn how to build an actual web application with a backend, a database, and here's the things that solved. And eventually you're going to come across a company that will hire you because of that. Now, if you're just naturally curious, I would say still interview with projects, and then get you a LeetCode subscription. And while you're being paid, go through all of those, learn them all. It's fine. If you think it's fun, you hack or rank or whatever you want to do. Yep. I think that's fine.
Yep. So it needs to learn to pivot better. Got a BST question on a phone screen, and I got through the address book now. Moving on to the blog soon. Lots to talk about. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, pivoting is one kind of thing that you could maybe do, but also I think you almost have to be okay with, like, if that's the way they're gonna go and you're into that situation, you have to be okay with kind of not getting it. That's the other thing too. You have to just be okay with failure. Like, that's just
what I would do, Kevin. What is BST question? What's that mean? Binary.
Probably
I don't know what
binary
BST.
sort tree, whatever. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So
but
you got that
a technical question.
So write the question down. Go to LeetCode. Study it. All right. And just continue to do that until you do it. Now, what we're going to give out in the self-paced course, since he's on it, is we're going to give you the top 20 C# interview questions that we think you'll get. And this comes from real-world experience. We know because we ask our students to do it. They give them back to us. We talk to employers, debrief them afterwards, and find out what they're asking them, so that we can better prepare our program to make sure that people can pass these things, so that we're teaching the right things, so that we know that what they're looking for lines up with the education process here. So but yeah, you can pivot really hard on those kind of things. And if they don't on a phone screen, yeah, you don't have a way to demo. So you need to be able to talk about things that you build more than anything,
Yep.
So
just confirm.
if
Yes.
someone asks, so someone asked me what a binary search tree is, I would literally pivot with, if you haven't done it, say, really haven't done it. What I've been doing is, and I would talk about that address book, the bug tracker, or the blog, and say, this is what I'm building. And currently right now, binary search tree doesn't really evaluate to the types of problems I'm solving. Here's the problems I'm solving. For example, I've got a front end for my bug tracker, and it's got a list of tickets in it. So I stuck those in a grid that's coming out of the database. Talk about the link query, talk about the things that you did to get that to display on the page, and then talk about the detail views and how all that worked. And I think that's how you pivot into it. And say, I haven't had an opportunity to use that in the projects that I'm doing. So let me talk to you about what I'm doing. I think you can win. You either win or lose, or you can go devote all your time to those LeetCode style questions, but maybe you need to look at 5 or 10 of them. That's fine.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Any other questions there?
Oh, we got a bunch of questions here. Charlie wants to know your favorite project in Python.
It's my favorite project doesn't matter what I'm building it in. So so
a lot of people talked about this on Tuesday. What's your criteria for your favorite project? Talk about that.
Yeah. If I'm building Python web applications, then I'm going to build something that has a database backend, implements security, authorization, authentication, and solves a business problem. So database, security, solves a business problem. My 3 main criteria. We think the bug tracker right now qualifies for that. Can you build that with Python? Absolutely. Can you build it in pure JavaScript and React? Yes. Can you build it in C# and ASP.NET? Absolutely. So you can build it with whatever you want. So Charlie, if you know Python like the back of your hand, then implement a project like that using a framework that's in demand. So there's a lot of those Python type frameworks out there, and that's what I would do. Bug tracker, build it.
Okay. Jack has a question. So answering to one of my earlier questions, Mr. Bobby talked about companies paying companies talked about their self-taught dev employees to get a CS degree while working. Yeah. Can you please elaborate on that? You're self-taught, you have a job, but you want to get a CS degree.
Oh, so sometimes there is an education benefit to some companies, and they'll say use that, and you go use that education benefits or reimbursement. Not every company is doing that. Self-taught is probably the most common developer that you'll run across anyway. And so there are companies now that may even value the CS degree. And so you can look for companies that have an education reimbursement. That does happen. It's more rare than, So it's something you can do for sure, depending on what your company you're working at and what they got. So you can see kind of if that's a perk that you want when you're interviewing, you can find out if that's available. Yeah, but let's say it's not, anything that you're going to learn in the CS degree after you're working is going to be based in and around theory type things. Yeah, and anything you're going to learn that's going to be practical will be in things like our self-paced course, Udemy, or whatever else, because that's where I would say the bleeding edge of how to do things is being taught at this point. It's not in the CS degree programs. Now, but could you learn a lot? Yeah, you can learn about all kinds of stuff in CS2 reprograms, but it won't necessarily, if you're building websites, necessarily translate practically into your day-to-day job. But if your company values that and they're willing to pay for it, it's possible. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. John wants to know, how do I shine in a pair programming interview format?
Ask lots of questions, and hopefully you can write some code to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Asking lots of questions is perfectly okay, isn't it? It's like, definitely understanding the problem first is a big one. Like, don't just like when they, you know, if they give you a problem and you start like kind of working on it without asking some clarifying questions, they're going to kind of like, that's going to be a mark against you, because I guarantee you part of this test is that you do need to ask a clarifying question to get the actual real problem, because they're going to be kind of ambiguous on what they actually really want until you start talking to them. So definitely ask questions up front, I would say, to try and
sometimes it may be, they may not be purposely ambiguous. It's just clear to them because they've done this 1,000 times.
Yeah, that too.
And it's just like, it's, you know, I always say, that's clear as mud to everyone else.
Right.
So, we don't understand what's in your brain. Can you please explain that to me like a little bit more so I can understand kind of what you're doing? Yeah,
because the worst thing you want to do is start making something that they don't actually ask for, right? And you go down this whole road.
Yeah, if you're going to get a pair programming question, just remember that if you interview for the jobs in the stack that you're studying, only interview for those types of roles so you can understand kind of what's going on. So if you're doing things like MVC, then interview for MVC jobs. And if you get a pair programming interview, then you should be at that point be able to, okay, I think I can do this. I think I should be able to fix this code. And typically you have a solution coming in and it's kind of maintenance programming. So I think you can do it. Ask lots of clarifying questions and see if you can hopefully code it up. And that's just going to take a lot of practice.
Okay. Let me see. So here you go. Scott says, I think it's about what we're talking about here. So it's about communication and how to interact with others. Code is important, but not the whole piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, that comes with this. Yeah. This thing too, definitely. Do up some more questions here. Thank you for the questions, everybody. So Yunus, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Says, hello, Guy. Really appreciate. Hello, Guy. I guess. Well, let's say guys. Really appreciating your work. I'm 30 years old and second year in CS major. Okay. I'm working and continue to study at night. Do I have a chance at the field, or am I just wasting my effort?
No, you're not wasting your effort. No,
I wonder where that comes from. Like, why?
I don't know. Like, what in the society thinks that 30 is like? I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. Like, I'm washed up if I'm 30 and I haven't done what I want to do yet. I don't know where that comes from.
I guess that is. I mean, yeah. I guess they're feeling like it is an age thing. Yeah. But I mean, because that's the only thing
I remember, like the old show Logan's Run. I remember watching that Logan's Run. When you hit 30, they killed you. So, like, that's why the guy ran
that's
away.
A little harsh. I've never seen that.
Yeah, yeah. You haven't seen that?
No.
So, like, you would go to this arena, and then they would like lift you up in the sky, and then like you would die in this light. And Logan basically said, I think I got more stuff to do. I think I'm just going to leave, and it's all about them chasing him down because he violated what society said. And so in general, I think there's a movement in and around, like from 20 to 30, you need to find yourself before you turn 30. Otherwise, you're kind of set in stone. Now, Giannis, we come from the U.S. and America where we feel like you can start over every single day. Like, there's plenty of people that do things that screw up. They waste a decade. They waste a decade here, and then they reinvent themselves and they start over. The only way you can do that is doing what you're doing, is education, learning a new skill, and applying that skill in the marketplace. And you should have a chance to do that. I don't think there's any wasted effort in that.
Definitely. So, look up our friend Paul. Is Coding After 30. Look up his channel. He's literally reinvented himself into the coding world at 30 something.
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for a while now. So yeah, he shows you that it totally is possible. So
it's possible. You can definitely do it.
Steven's 42. Look, and still.
Yeah, I would do it.
So
yeah,
100%.
I wish I was 30. I wish I could be 42.
Right.
It'd be amazing.
Right. So. Here you go. Look, Scott too. Switch to coding at 50. So don't think age is a big barrier.
Yeah. It is. It's the one thing you can't change anyway, so you might as well go for it. That's the way I look at it. You can't change your age until they invent something like that where we can reverse our age. We just can't do it. So just keep on bettering yourself every single day. Commit to education, commit to your craft, and you'll have a job.
There you go. I'm not quite sure why Jasmine's name is stuck down there at the bottom, but it is. It's supposed to go away.
Subscribing.
But Jasmine subscribed and also has a question too. So,
hey,
so I
Jasmine,
we just do it at the same time. I thought it's supposed to go away. I don't know why it's still there. It's stream elements for you. It's they work sometimes, they don't others. So
I think
Jasmine's a beginner. Yeah, kind of projects you need HTML, CSS stuff.
So if you're just doing HTML and CSS only, so what you can do is look at and we kind of coined this as like the clone on steroids, but like basically, let's say you clone a restaurant site, but clone a real one, but make it better. And say, it used to look like this. They didn't pay me to do this. Here's what I would do if they hired me to do this. And then you can actually just send it to the restaurant and say, hey, you want a new website? It's X.
You can find plenty of bad ones too, by the way. Just trust me. There's anybody in your town, wherever you live, I guarantee you there's bad websites.
Right. So your take on Netflix probably won't, it's cool, but you're really probably not going to improve upon Netflix. I mean, because they spend $1 billion on their UI, but you definitely can take 3 restaurants down in your neighborhood and like improve on their websites and just kind of like maybe apply a template to it, maybe do a little branding around it. And you can do all that with HTML and CSS.
Yep. Plus then what you're doing with that too is you're able to show like here's how it was and here's how cool I can make it.
Before and after, yeah.
Exactly, the kind of before and after thing. Yeah. It's like a little case study, right? You get to give it a little case study.
And that totally works. We see it in other industries where it totally works. You can have the weight loss videos like, hey, I used to look like this. Now I look like that. Take this pill. And so that kind of A/B marketing, A/B testing or before and after marketing works really great.
Yep.
All right, cool. What's next?
I was just trying to drop the thing from there at the bottom, but sorry.
Jasmine's just going to stay there.
You're going to be a permanent sponsor, Jasmine. I hope you you like your subscription until somebody else subscribes here at some point, I guess, or maybe it's just broken. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So we've been approved for GI Bill or Vet Tech yet?
Not yet. I mean, we do. You can just call in and we can talk to you about.
We have one program. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Kelly. Yeah. That. I don't know what it's called. We do have one
the VA.
VA program. Yeah. I don't know which one.
Yep.
Here you go. Spencer has a question. So landing a second job, I heard, was much easier than the first one. Can you elaborate more on why?
Because now you're no longer you're a proven commodity. It's as simple as that. The 1-year person also gets paid more, which means in a weird way, recruiters can sell you better, so they get more fees on that. So I don't know why, but like it's harder to get a fee for a first year person than the person coming into their second year, or they perceive it that way, or that the salaries are higher. So I'd rather work on an $80,000 job than a $42,000 job, and I get more fees that way. So it's just a whole lot easier once you have experience. It just is. You're proving that you can do it. So experience matters way more than what you get paid in the first year.
Okay, that answers your question. Okay, JP says, career changing from product management to software dev. Is it possible?
Sure. Yeah, man.
It's possible
I think a lot of product management, from anything, but product management goes into software dev anyway, because software devs end up being products themselves. And so you're managing like features and kind of what's going on. What do we need to improve upon this? And you can understand what the business is doing it. So you can bring a lot to that arena for sure. So I think it's definitely possible. People do it all the time.
Okay. Let's see. Jandre says, I watched another video on YouTube earlier this week where the person claims that C#, this wasn't a question, C# is locked into Windows only. Shame. Yeah. You see that kind of stuff all the time.
All the time. So they don't understand. So C# in specific, your web dev and mobile and desktop. Well, let's talk about web dev is definitely cross-platform. It will run on Linux. We do it every day here at the Coder Foundry. it'll run on obviously ISS and Windows servers. So it'll run anywhere that you want to do. And that's with or without a container. So a container box up your stuff, and then you run that binary as a unit up into AWS or your Linux host or whatever it is. You also can just directly deploy that as well, and you can use that through build packs and stuff like that you can add to it. We're doing it to Heroku, and so that's one of the methods. I have a video out there which shows us pushing .NET 6 to Heroku. You go watch that video.
Yeah, let's go on our channel and search for Heroku.
Yeah, just search for Heroku. It definitely works on it. And then when you figure .NET MAUI and or Xamarin, both of those run on iOS and Android for sure. It's running C# on Android and Windows, and also runs on Windows, obviously. But now with .NET MAUI, it's going to run also on Mac OS. So can you run a desktop application currently on Linux? For some reason, people think Microsoft should target Linux as a desktop when it's a fraction of the marketplace. And so they said, we're not going to do that because it's a lot of work, but we'll open source .NET and allow other people to do it. And now the marketplace has come in, and people have come in on the community and allow .NET MAUI and those kind of things to be able to push to Linux as well. So if you need to build that desktop application, GUI application on Linux, then you definitely can do that through a community project with C#. But if you're looking to work as a dev, you're deploying to two places on the desktop, Windows and Mac OS pretty much. And on the mobile front, you're deploying to two places, iOS and Android. There's not a whole lot of other choices that you should even consider if you're making a product, because the other things are so small that's not really relevant. But a lot of people saying, yeah, but I use my GUI command line Linux to do security, and I get all that. I get there's tooling there and there's reasons, but right now, C# is not locked to Windows only. It can deploy anywhere. You can get your website to any host pretty much. And then if you want to write desktop apps or mobile apps, you use .NET MAUI and push it anywhere as well.
Yeah, we made a video about some of the myths of C#. Yep. You can go check that out on the channel. That's fairly recent because we kept seeing these things. So yeah, that of course being one of the...
C# runs anywhere. It's really cool.
Bharat says, how much math is required in coding?
I think the reason math isn't seen as a requirement to coding is that math has a logical order of operations, and so does coding. I think those two skills to solve a math problem are kind of very similar, and I think that's why math is included in these things. But I don't think day-to-day building a website, I mean, there's some certain math things that you need to know, like, hey, what's 50% mean? That's half of 100.
Right.
So but do I have to I don't know.
I mean, from a design perspective, color theory will take you way further than math in the design of a website, no doubt. Yeah,
and there's some things you might want to. The other kind of complex thing that I kind of run into is your X and Y coordinates. Sometimes which way is which is Y and which is X, and then if you flip it on the side, you got to know Y and X and know that there's if you zeros in the middle and negative and plus, things like that. So other than that, I don't see us doing a whole lot of math. Typically, if you have a math problem, there's someone else in an organization giving you that math problem. My example was I worked at a company called Aon Consulting, and we worked on things that were in around pensions. And so they had actuaries that calculated the pensions and did all the heavy math work. You just had to implement the equation. So I wasn't out there trying to do the actuary work. Just the coding part.
Somebody gave you the logic kind of thing. And even when you get into the back end and stuff, it's there's some logical skills there, but it's more logic than it is math. Yeah, right? It's not straight up.
Yeah, I want to sum these together. Okay, I want to subtract these two, so basic math. But when you go into complex algebra, no. Calculus, pretty much no. Unless some guys out there saying, yeah, but I write a physics engine for Unreal Engine.
Well, that's different.
Get it. Totally math.
Yeah.
So there may be some math related in certain arenas.
That's because the problem is math. That's
the problem is math.
Just different.
That's why math is required. But typically, math isn't the main thing that you need to understand. So
yeah. But we do also see, I will say, people who have the correct kind of logical mind and are good at math also tend to be good coders.
Yep. Because it's the same kind of skill set.
Exactly, same kind of skill set. Now, they're not directly related, like you said. You're not using the math a lot, but it's the way of thinking about it is kind of the same. So, yeah, there is that. Okay. So next question here. What do we got? Moment says, I know Python. I want to learn Django. Should I learn design patterns before that? I already know UML and OO concepts.
I would, if you want to learn Django, just learn Django. So,
but I know you're a big fan of like design patterns, though, right? You think
so however Django is implementing those patterns is what you need to do. The framework itself is going to tell you how we design those patterns. So pick the common design pattern that Django is using and use that one. So, but object-oriented concepts may, you may see some of that, but not a whole lot. So, but I think that's fine. I mean, you learn Django, learn it and build a project in it and figure out like how it all works, how it puts together and do it. That's what they're going to hire you to do anyway. Right. So, I mean, learning 6 design patterns is
right.
I mean,
just
if you're not going to use them. So
exactly. So Naraj wants to know how much it would take to become a web developer. Which scripting languages are needed to become a front-end developer?
It's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then I would say in CSS, I would learn Bootstrap because of the domination of the marketplace in Bootstrap. That's what I would learn. I know that if you go ask Twitter this, they're going to tell you Tailwind, but Tailwind's like 12% of sites. Bootstrap's from around 80. So you'll find much more sites built in with Bootstrap than not. And it's just a more valuable skill currently today as we speak. Now that could change over time, but like right now, today, I focus on today, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, what they're going to want you to do as well is learn a front-end type framework, and that's where our advice comes in with ASP.NET, React, or Angular. That's kind of the big three. The Django's smaller. The last guy, that's another one that you can pick if you want to do Python. But that's how do I code on the back end. But I think it's a misnomer when people say, I want to be a front-end developer. You're going to have to know how like Node or the back end kind of works for you to even call things. I mean, so it's really a misnomer to say, I just do, unless you're just doing design only. I'm
going to say front-end design is different than front-end development.
Yeah. Front-end developer, once you enter at React, you're like, okay, I'm communicating to the back end at that point. Could you get a clean separation concern? Absolutely. And you get like endpoints that you can call. But typically in most jobs, like you got to know kind of what the endpoint's doing and, that kind of stuff. So I think you want to pick up front end React, front end Angular, and then server side could be Node, could be .NET. There's a lot to know. But start with HTML, CSS, JavaScript first.
There you go. I'm gonna do these 2 at the same time. They just came in, but I'm gonna do them because they're the same thing from 2 different people. Okay, we talked about this a lot. Front-end will be replaced by AI in the future, and literally the very next comment was, these days web development is crowded. What really makes us different from others and irreplaceable?
It's not crowded. I mean, there's so many opportunities that it's just crazy how many jobs there is out there. I mean, so we look in the US and just type in .NET, we're looking at 15 to 20,000 openings on any given day. That tells you that it's crowded, but like there's a lot of openings, So think of it this way. Web development is the party everyone wants to go to, and you go in the building and it seems like, man, there's a lot of people here. But there's like 2 to 3 stories above the building where the party continues. You're like, there's this level, and this level, and we're kind of empty up here. I need some more people. So like, there's a lot of people doing it.
My search right here for web developer just told me just shy of 70,000 jobs
in the U.S.
US,
yeah. So
pretty generic, but that's a lot of open. I mean, that's literally we're talking about open jobs today. We're not talking about how many jobs they're going to fill over the next year. We're talking about today. There's 70,000 open jobs for a generic web developer.
Yeah. So what makes you irreplaceable? Nothing. Okay. But here's the things that can make you valuable. So valuable is the standard things that make you valuable in any job. commitment to craft, knowing the business that you're working on inside and out, being on time, work well with others, be a knowledge sharer, not a gatekeeper. Those are all the things in the book where we say how to be the rock star, the 10x coder. A lot of people think the 10x coder is, I know 22 languages. Well, if you knew one really well and you're easy to work with others, then okay, you're a lot more valuable than the other guy that has all this knowledge and doesn't share well with others. So I think that if you want to be very irreplaceable, is work well with the business, communicate complex projects to people that don't code for a living in a way that's not condescending, and 3, commitment to craft, being excellent at what you do always. And I think if you do those, you're always going to be employed in this industry.
And then also addressing this part, front end being replaced by AI in the future.
Nah.
Maybe, but we're also talking about like, you know, when are we getting flying cars? You know,
another thing, because like, let's go look at the art generated by AI. It's like,
yes, we've done that a lot here. We looked at the.
Yes. Is it a picture? Yeah. Yes. Does it look like a human? Sort of.
Kind of.
Is it fantastic? Depends on your point of view. But like, I think no. And so therefore, could another human do that better? Absolutely. Yeah. Is there, like, in other words, like if you took the best AI generated art and the best person generated art, which is better, it's always going to be the human, and it's always going to be superior to the AI generated thing, the way it currently exists right now. So let's say you're worried about the future. So what do you think of the future? Next 50 years? Okay, if you're 30, that means you're 80. Should you learn dev? Yes.
Yeah, you don't have
it's
to
not
worry
like
about
us as humans live for 150 years. So, you know, hey, if it's got a 20-year outlook or a 30-year outlook, do it. Well, let's say that I'm wrong and like AI takes over in 6 years. Okay, so you had a nice run. You know, that's what we could say. We had a nice run, boys.
Right.
But I promise you that
there's something else to do.
Something else that you'll be able to do, because AI, it can't build a website currently right now, even with Squarespace and Wix and
We've
web
had
builders.
These promises forever, since the days of first looking at the first like HTML and CSS stuff, and then these
can't do it.
Like the page builders came out, the WYSIWYG editors came out. It's like, man, development's dead. I can now drag and drop. Far from it. Far from it,
yeah. And even when the really good ones, it's like the moment you go off that thing, it's like, you know, it definitely has a ceiling to what even the great ones, what they can do.
Yes. I mean, even
you
today,
got to write code at that point.
Yep. Even today, something like Squarespace or Wix or something, you can build a site with that. Sure, you can. But trust me, it has limitations. You cannot do everything with that you may want to do. There's no back end of those things at all. It is purely just a front. So you want a static page with maybe a form on it? Great. You want anything more complex than that?
You want that form to go through an approval process? Forget about
it. Forget it.
You know,
I mean, the form process is
form request.
Exactly. The form process is tied through a third party, and you're using then you get into no-code solutions where you start using Zapier to send the data off to other platforms, and it's like that's what we have to do. I mean, in all fairness, our front site is a Squarespace site, and we're very, very open about that. We use third-party tools because we want people in marketing to be able to also use the site and not have to go to a developer every 5 minutes to fix it.
I don't want to code the website every day. So like I initially did that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like
this is a bad experience. So it has its limitations.
Even now, when we talk about our form integrations, even using Zapier, it's like we have settled and said, okay, this is kind of what it does. Yeah. You know, like, would we like it better? Yeah, but we'd have to go back and like write code to do that. So like, no, it's not really. It's in my opinion, Zapier plus Squarespace plus Air. You know what is that? What's the thing we use? The database. Airtable is like level 1.
Yeah.
Like if you want the easiest possible way to do it, this is the way to do it. You want some flexibility, we can do it. But then it's like
it's probably the right solution for some people.
Yeah.
There are some no-code solutions where the app could be built with these kind of third-party no-code things, and it might work. But as soon as you step outside of the box that you kind of like are put in, and the limitations you're putting through the app, now you've got to go custom. Now it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, because I've worked in enough companies to know that someone comes in and says, "Hey, can you make my Excel sheet do this? Like, can we just write the app, dude? Like, what do you want?"
Exactly. And the answer's always no, and it's like, then we need a custom solution. Like,
how come I can't put 100 million rows in my Access database I got from Office? Well, because it's not meant to do that. Like, we need to move that to SQL. Well, then I can't build my form on the front. We know that. Like, you got to build a web page. So like, it becomes very kind of it becomes very complex real quickly. And that's why developers have jobs, because the problems you're trying to solve can't be solved by no code. Trust me, if Salesforce could get rid of the no code option, they'd be the most successful VC-backed company in the history of the planet. They're like, man, it'd be great if I didn't have to employ 20,000 people to keep this thing running. But it's just the way it is. It'll never be replaced.
The no code world is interesting too. I find it very interesting. I do like a bunch of the no code apps. We use them, and I do like them. They definitely serve their purpose. But it's like, it's an interesting world, isn't it? Because you see people like claim that this is going to do away with all of this other thing. It's like, but they're very, very siloed in what they do. Like, just to get that form to work and post to a table to save the data, we're using 3 different applications: Squarespace on the front end, Zapier to connect to it, and then Airtable to save the data. They're very siloed. It's not one solution. It's lots. They have their one purpose.
A little inside baseball, like, it didn't work, and then you guys called me and say, hey, man, this form doesn't work. And I remember looking at it thinking like, okay, I got to diagnose how this form works and look at these values. And then I got to go match up this value because, if it doesn't match exactly, it blows up, and
it's
so
fairly complex.
We had to, so, and that was just around like, hey, what's the date of the cohort?
Right. We just wanted to take a form when somebody applies to the school and put the data over here in this, essentially this spreadsheet database, Airtable.
It couldn't handle dates. It's like, okay. So we had to like check it with strings, and it had to be certain way, we just had to make concessions, so there's nowhere to say, well, can I translate this data into something else and then compare the 2 options so that I know what they meant when they typed it in. But like, that's just one scenario, and our form has 8 fields on it.
Right, right, and it's not complex. This is
not
a complex form.
It's like,
this is really not complicated.
Yeah, I was pulling my hair out trying to look at Zapier and trying to understand, like, why doesn't that work? Oh, okay, I know why. So now I have to go fix Airtable and like make it do this.
And the crazy thing is, we are in one of those situations where it is one of those situations where it's like, it works now, and it's like, I don't want to touch it because it works.
Right.
So, like,
it's fragile.
It's very fragile. It is very fragile. Right. We've broken it a few times, but it's like, why is that not working? As because like, it's this changed or this changed, or we changed the schema of the table or something. It's like, okay.
I'm just sitting there thinking, here's my hot take for the day. You know what's wrong with no code?
What?
Because there is no code. That's the problem. I can't change the code. Yeah. That's the problem. That's the entire problem. That's the problem with no code. I can't fix it. Like, there's nothing I could do.
You're right. You're right. You
10,000
know how
lines
to
of
fix
JavaScript
it
any day.
Yeah, you're like, I understand where the problem is and why it's not working, but I don't have access to the code to be able to fix it. I'm stuck within this GUI or whatever it is that we're using to be able to
I need to tweet that out. The problem with
no
code is there's no code. That's the problem. Agree, disagree. Poll for the day. There we go. Long live JavaScript. Hashtag long live JavaScript.
Let's just go this real quick, because Jasmine is a new subscriber. We asked a question earlier.
Yes.
And we appreciate you being a new subscriber too.
Yes.
Bootstrap on the Tailwind. Here's the thing.
Yes.
Do the research yourself, Jasmine. Honestly, go look up the number of sites that use Bootstrap and the number of sites that use Tailwind. You'll also see, in the last developer survey that came out, you'll also see adoption rates. While Tailwind has gone up a few percentage each year, I think they started like at 9% a few years ago, or 6%. They're up to 13%. Bootstrap remained consistently 80+% usage.
Yeah.
Across the board. People, it's not the hot new like thing that just came out.
If you're on tech Twitter, they'll tell you that Bootstrap sucks. You can't change it. Blah 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 blah. And then they say, I'm using Tailwind because it's cool. I promise you, this next thing that comes out will replace the Tailwind people, and these people are making their technology decisions on their own. When the company makes it, Bootstrap is dominant, and that's what's going to get you hired. So just use that. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong. Bootstrap 5 just came out. It's supported by Twitter. It's not on the down slope at all. It is more opinionated than Tailwind, and I think that's a great thing, because I can have components that actually render stuff and it looks great. Can you modify it? Absolutely. Learn Sass, and then you can make Bootstrap do whatever you want. You change the colors to your heart's content. Yep. And that's all they're talking about when they say, I can't change anything in Bootstrap. That means they can't change the default primary button from blue to green or FF993B.
And 100% you can.
You can, because I do it all the time. Yeah. Without Sass, actually. I just override the styles. So you can do whatever you want.
You can use certain parts of it and not use others. You can use a CDN. It's like, for me, it has as a new developer too, its on-ramp is way easier. I've looked at Tailwind. I've never actually used it, but I've looked at it and I'm like, wow, that's a much more complex setup. I don't know if the usage case, when you get into it, people love or hate it. But just to get going, Bootstrap's really easy. Really easy. Yeah. So Clara says WordPress no code.
It can be. It can be both.
But again, you have limitations. But WordPress is one of those things where it can be both, right? You can really get into it. You can get into the PHP side of WordPress, and you can do way more code. But technically,
so WordPress is a CMS, a page builder that you host on your own, and you're not paying for something like Squarespace or Wix. And then you can also customize it to make it fit your workflows. So it's definitely a career that you can build your career in and around WordPress. There's nothing wrong with WordPress at all. It is definitely more complicated and more powerful than something like Wix or Squarespace.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So it's harder to set up. It's more moving parts. I'm not saying it's difficult. Don't yell at me on Twitter.
It ranges from easy-ish, not as easy as Squarespace, I will say, but also easy-ish to very, very complex.
So I remember us looking at it. We had Squarespace and we were using it, and then the marketing came to me, "Okay, can we implement WordPress?" And I'm like, "So what are we getting?" And it was kind of complicated and like set up, and we had to change the host and and all the plugins, and like, can we just? I just remember saying, like, let's just stick with Squarespace. There's no value add for us at that point. So, but is WordPress running most of the websites? Yeah. So it's not.
Runs a lot of the web.
It's both. So it's definitely useful for sure.
Yep, definitely.
You can carve a career out on WordPress.
Oh, people have. People definitely have. Definitely. Let's do one last one. We're a little bit.
One last one.
But that's okay. We're a little bit late. So
we're a little bit late.
I'm just picking one here because I like this one. Will it hurt me if I put a photo of myself on my portfolio? I've had a photo stolen before and used for harassment. There's basically nothing I can do to prevent it if I upload another.
Okay. No, you can do whatever you want. I mean, do it however you want to do. It doesn't matter what you want to do. But the reason you don't do it isn't because you've had your photos stolen. Unless.
Yeah, I mean that happens.
No comment. I don't know how they would use it for harassment. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. Obviously, we don't know the situation. It depends. I don't know.
I don't know the situation.
It depends. It depends. Yeah, it could be for anything. But I mean, no, don't hold back because of that. I think it's perfectly acceptable. Do you have to have it? No. You can do without it too. It's not one of those things that if you don't have it, people are going to be like, that sucks. Like,
it's kind of accepted practice on LinkedIn too. So if you don't have it on LinkedIn, it's kind of a red flag. So like, you're going to have to upload a picture. Yeah, you're going to have to upload a photo of yourself somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
But hey, I get it. Do whatever you think. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't. Put it that way. Is it a needle mover? It could be. It's just like it can be negative if you have a bad photo. So if I had to choose between bad photo, which is you sticking your tongue out or you in a bar drunk, versus a professional photo on the other end versus no photo, okay, I would pick the no photo option if you have a bad photo. So take a professional headshot with an iPhone or with a professional photographer, however you want to do, and stick it up there. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a photo of yourself up there. I mean, if you take a good photo, I doubt they can use it for harassment. Could they make memes out of your photo? I guess they could. They've made some memes out of me and Kevin. We're not as popular as some of the meme people. We're not Tobey Maguire.
I don't want to lie.
We're not inviting it, but we're not gonna not put our photo up there because of that. So.
But I guess I don't know. I guess if somebody uses it and it's like nasty or something, that's I guess it's not very nice. But I mean, does that stop you from putting yourself out on the internet? I don't think it should. I think you should just
you got to do it.
Be brave, Ryoku, and be above that. You can be better than that person doing that. That's.
I think our best meme was Frozen Kevin. I mean that's when our internet froze.
When my stream froze. Yeah, and I was here mid
Frozen Kevin.
Or was I staring down somebody? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
That was It's on our Discord channel somewhere in the memes, buried in there from a couple of years back, I think. So. Okay, cool. let's wrap up. We're gonna do this again on Tuesday. Actually, we're gonna do a Twitter Space tomorrow.
Okay, so 3 p.m. Yeah,
we'll do that 3 p.m. tomorrow. I haven't set it up yet, but I will. So follow us on Twitter. I'm at Kevin Doyle. Bobby is at CT Bobby Davis. We will be doing a Twitter Space tomorrow. So we'll do this kind of thing again tomorrow. We'll probably put a topic around it too. But come and ask your questions. A little bit different than this because we get to hear from you guys too, and you get to talk, which is super nice for us. And we'll see if we can get some other people there too. I know last week, Joe showed up from Coding Phase, so that was cool. Yeah, it was awesome to have Joe. So cool. I'll invite him back in if he wants to come back tomorrow. And I'll see if there's some other people too want to show up. I know Tech Rally sometimes shows up, and that's Paul too, but I think he was working last week. So yeah, we'll see. It's always fun to hang out with people and answer some of your guys' questions. So we'll do that tomorrow on Twitter Spaces.
All right. See you guys tomorrow. Good luck. Keep coding. See you later.